I think even when you talk to really super successful writers, there's always that little bit of fear and insecurity. Even if you have a lot of fans, and if, say, you switch genres or you're writing something new, you think, gosh, a lot of people are going to be disappointed. This isn't what I usually write. There's always that kind of a pressure because you don't know until you put it out there how people are going to respond. You just have to have a little bit of faith and get past the fear.
Welcome to the Author Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for indie authors who want to improve their writing, up-level their marketing, make money with their books, and have fun doing it. Now, on to the show with your host, ALAB Barnard.
Hello, everyone. Hello, author bosses. We are here today with the lovely Debbie Herbert. She's a USA Today and Publishers Weekly best-selling author and 2017 Rita finalist. She writes paranormal romance novels and suspense books, reflecting her belief that love, like magic, casts its own spell of enchantment. She is traditionally published through Harlequin as well as indie published. She's married, living in Alabama, and she roots for the Crimson Tide football team.
Roll Tide.
Yeah. My husband's in the background right now like, oh.
He must be an LSU fan.
Yeah, he is. Debbie.
Oh, dear.
I know, you guys, if you don't know, you don't want to get into it.
SEC. We can both agree on that.
Debbie enjoys bicycling, recumbent bicycling, and jet skiing with her husband. She has 2 grown sons, and the oldest has autism. Characters with autism frequently land in her works, even when she doesn't plan on it.
Right.
Debbie, thank you so much for being here. We are so excited to chat.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Yay. Good. Okay, so go ahead and let's just jump right into it. And can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your author journey?
Okay. I retired from a soul-sucking day job about 10 years ago. And the first 2 years were wonderful, just piddling around the house. And then I decided that I wanted to take up a career in writing. I'd always wanted to be a serious writer, and finally decided I had time to do it now, and I was going to do it. So I started writing about 8 years ago and was unpublished the first 3 years. I wrote 3 books before I finally sold one. So I've been published almost 5 years now.
Wow. So not like, oh, I've been writing forever and I dropped, but kind of like, oh, second part of life, like retired.
Right.
And then.
I mean, I did the usual thing in high school. I wrote terrible, angsty love poetry and short stories. and I did, when I first got married at age 20, I wrote this horrible, sappy, sentimental love story that I sent to Harlequin that was promptly, soundly rejected. And so I thought I was a terrible writer, and I hung it up for a long time.
I think that's really common, especially for women, where they're like, okay, this isn't for me, especially for women who happen to be perfectionists, where they're like, if it's not good at the first time, it's not worth doing. And then as we get a little older, we're like, wait a minute, this is the thing I actually love. It's worth investing some time and attention and passion into.
Exactly. And I'm almost 60 years old. So I just, I think women today, any writer today, I think the internet's a wonderful thing. You can find your tribe and your community. But I was living in a small South Alabama town and didn't know anybody else who wrote, and figured, I had sent this manuscript off to New York City, and the voice of authority had judged and ruled me not worthy. So I didn't know, not everybody makes it on their first book, and that you should keep trying. I just didn't know. So.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't know. I want to point out, you guys, that back when she sent this a little while ago, not that long ago, she looks very, very young. You guys, I've seen her. But when she sent that off, and she made a decision after getting the rejection that she wasn't a good writer, but actually there was just, now that we're older, we can realize there was just probably some dudes probably some dudes up there who was like, and not like a whole bunch of them, just a few, like in the scheme of things, probably some guys who were like, no,
I don't care for this.
Yes, which doesn't mean that it was amazing, but doesn't mean that it was terrible either. And so if you've had that experience of sending your stuff out and having it rejected, realize, because just like Debbie said, that now you don't have to go through the gatekeepers necessarily.
Exactly.
To find your
so
tribe.
Many people have had so much success indie publishing. There's always options. Always.
And if you have a tribe of people who love your stuff, it makes it that much easier to be traditionally published if that's your intention. So, so what are you writing now? What kind of books are you writing?
I've evolved. I started off writing paranormal romance. My first book published was this quirky mermaid tale. Thank goodness I found someone who wanted to read it and buy it. But then I wrote 6 paranormal romance books, and then I decided that I wasn't interested in what was really popular, which is vampires and werewolves. I was more into mermaids and unicorns and witches and just tropes that weren't quite as popular. So I made decisions to start writing romantic suspense, and I've got 2 books published with that and under contract to write 3 more of those. And that's been a lot of fun. I think in paranormal romance, there's a very strong suspense element, so it wasn't too hard of a transition. And then last year, I went off contract for about 4 or 5 months to write a psychological suspense book. And that has just recently sold in a 2-book deal. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to head more in the mystery arena than staying with the romantic suspense. But we'll see. It just all depends on how it goes.
Oh, that's so exciting because a lot of people have, a lot of authors I've talked to, they have all these ideas and they're constantly having ideas. And I like, tell me if this is true for you, that you're able, do you have constant ideas and you're able to kind of go with what's popular?
Yeah, I didn't realize the importance of writing to market when I first started my career. I just wrote what I thought was fun because I wasn't sure it would ever even sell or anybody would want to read it. But now, I have a file on my computer with all kind of story ideas, and I try to match it to what I think the market is trending towards. But of course, that's a guess too. But it doesn't mean I try to do that.
But you're not giving up your creativity. You're just taking one of the ideas.
Exactly. Yeah. You never know. It's a crazy business. It could be that a month from now, someone publishes a mermaid alien Western that becomes #1. You just never know what's going to strike gold.
Yeah. That's what I think is so exciting about indie and self-publishing, because you just never know what people are going to love. It's so much fun. Okay.
Exactly.
So what is your writing routine and how do you make time to write?
Okay. Well, I am retired, so I have to admit that's an advantage I have over other people who are so busy with day jobs and young children. I'm kind of out of that stage. But I think for someone who truly loves to write, you'll find the time. But generally, my routine is I start writing about 11 o'clock, and I write for a couple hours, take a little break for lunch, and then in the later afternoon, I spend time like either plotting or editing or handling administrative kind of work.
Okay, that's nice. So you don't keep your writing and your administrative. You block out bits of time for each of those.
Yeah, because once I start writing and you get immersed in the story, if you stop and start doing social media or something else, it takes time to get back to flowing with the story.
Okay. Yeah. So how do you write? Do you write the same amount? Like how much are you writing each day, out of curiosity?
I probably average 1,000 words a day. I guess I'm weird. It depends. Like the start of a book, I'm a little bit slow as I kind of get to know the characters and make my plot more clear. And as I get near to the end of the book and I see the end in sight, I know how everything is supposed to turn out and the steps to get there, I could do 2,000 words a day or more. And also, if I'm like right on deadline, that's a good incentive too.
So deadlines help you to write faster?
Absolutely. Yeah, because otherwise I could spend way too much time trying to polish and perfect as I write, or research and explore options for the story idea. I find that having deadlines really helps keep me focused. And I think it makes me a better writer to have just a little bit of that pressure.
You guys, I'm making a special. I'm underlining and bolding. Deadlines.
Cool.
Deadlines are important. They make you a better writer and spur you to write faster. So
yes, they really do. Yeah.
So I have a question. So when you're writing, how do you keep from getting lost in the story and actually complete it? And we talked a little bit about this. I know what she's going to say a little bit, you guys. Foreshadowing.
Okay. Well, I do try to block off and allow myself only a certain amount of time for plotting. And when I say that I plot, I don't have a total clear outline. I usually have a very broad kind of an outline. And then once I start writing, I can fill in or change it as needed. But I try to limit how much I research to exactly what I need to fill in the plot holes and what makes sense for character development, because otherwise I would just go off the deep end, because I only write about settings I love reading about, like, bayous or Okefenokee Swamp or the Tidewater area of Virginia. Those are all places I just find fascinating and could spend hours on. But I try to just focus in on what is needed for the story.
So I think that's a big thing that a lot of writers do, because they do love researching. So there's it's a double-sided coin, or two-sided coin, of course, like all coins are. But you get to, I'm sure, are you motivated because you're writing about these things you love? But on the other side, you have to hold yourself steady so that you don't just go off into the research and never come back up out of the swamp.
Absolutely. I've tried before to write a story that was set in an area I knew nothing about and didn't really excite me. And it was so hard to write. I had to abandon that and just kind of go back to my roots. And, I am who I am. I write what I write. And, I'm sure there's readers who don't care for it, but there's going to be other readers who like it. And you have to please yourself and enjoy the process.
That's really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I know that you're traditionally published, but you've recently self-published a novel. Is that correct?
Right. That's true.
Okay. So what had you decide to self-publish when you're already traditionally published? Because for most writers, being traditionally published is like the ultimate, that's the finish line. It's the dream come true. So what happened there?
Well, I have so many friends in the, especially in the romance field, especially paranormal romance. And it is so much fun to write a book in a shared world with other authors. And that's what this latest novella I wrote was about, a dragon shifter. But we were all writing about shifters with young children. And I just like the freedom of it, and not to be tied down to a certain word count, or it's just total freedom with the story to make it how you want to make it, how much romance to put in, how much to focus on, family relationships. It's just very freeing to do something that's indie.
Oh, I think that's a perspective that a lot of people who are just starting out, or, are early on in the process, do not have. And it's really lovely. And I love that I think that there's a community now of indie authors. It used to be not that long ago that there was kind of a stigma for being self-published. And now, what do you think about that?
I think that's correct. I think especially when I started writing 5 years ago, it was just when the indie self-publishing movement was kind of mushrooming and growing. And with, I think basically because of because of my insecurities, I wanted the validation of being traditionally published. And that worked fine for me. I enjoy that. But I also think that if I had gone the other route and indie published, just as that wave was hitting, it might have even been more successful for me. And I think there's so many people who have done so well indie publishing that stigma's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Everybody, the stigma is gone. And you can have a lot of freedom in indie and self-publishing. And when you're talking with paranormal romance writers, and you happen to be talking, Debbie, to a paranormal romance reader,
great.
That's me, you can't use words like mushrooming.
Oh, okay. That's funny.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry, I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, so Debbie, when did you? We're moving into marketing, you guys. So because we've kind of touched on this little baby steps along the way, but when did you start? Where did you start with your marketing, and when did you start it? Like when and where?
I started when I started querying for an agent, when I had a completed manuscript and had hopes of getting published. I started then. I opened up a Facebook account. And it's so funny because when I first started, I just hated Facebook and just had to force myself to open an account. Now I love it and spend way too much time on it. But I did set up a Facebook account. That was my first step. And that and networking with other authors. And I think networking with other authors has helped me more, especially in the beginning, than anything else I did. Because through working with other authors and being friends with them and attending conferences with them, you learn about opportunities, you learn their methods and what they do to gain readership. And it only helps you.
Okay. So how did you network with these other authors?
I joined the Georgia Romance Writers Group through the Romance Writers of America. That was my start. And, I've met so many good friends there and dozens of other friends, more than acquaintances, I would call them. And after that, it mushroomed. It grew to include authors that I met online through various writing courses and conferences, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So the Georgia, not Alabama. Alabama doesn't have a romance writers group.
They do. They have one in Birmingham and Mobile, and I'm actually from the Montgomery area, so there was nothing. But I have family in Atlanta, so it was just a lot more convenient to me to drive and visit family in Atlanta and then go to the meetings on my way back home.
I like that.
It just worked out really great.
It's like a vacation.
Yeah, it was like a vacation.
Yeah. You're like, I'm going to go hang out. I really like to encourage, one of the marketing strategies that I think is the best is exactly what you said, which is networking and befriending. Because networking, sometimes people, when they think about networking, it can feel a little bit like, I'm just trying to meet you because I want to see what I can get from you. Right. But really, when you say networking and the way you're saying it is actually more like befriending. And I think especially for women authors.
I was just going to say that word, befriending. I love that.
Yeah.
Because you become each other's support system and encouragers, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, yes, it is. You guys, befriending other writers in your genre is networking, but without the sleaziness.
Yes. When I think of networking, I think of formal Rotary Club meetings where people handing out business cards. And I don't mean that at all. I do mean befriending, genuine friendships with other writers.
Yeah. And we are so fortunate to be in a market. You guys, I'm going to say this over and over again. The market for writers is so amazing because it's an abundance market where people buy lots of books. They don't just buy one book and then they're done. They're constantly buying books. So you can, and they can read them faster than you can write them. So if you start promoting other authors' books that you've befriended, and then they promote yours because you guys are all writing at different schedules. And so you get to give your audience content that, it's just we're so fortunate. I love it so much. So, and sorry, I can go off on a
No,
tangent.
that's okay. I love it. It's all about building synergy, and you can accomplish more as a group than on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some of the things that you've done? What are the most effective marketing tools and strategies that you've used?
Well, I did all the basics. I started social media. I started a website, and I did all that kicking and screaming. But now it's all stuff I enjoy, and it's not so scary. What else I do? I set up an Amazon author page, a Goodreads author page. But the most effective thing really is building up an author newsletter. I think a lot of people now are saying they don't think it's effective because so many people do it now. But still, I haven't found anything else that's worked as well as having a newsletter.
How did you, how many people are on your newsletter and how did you build it?
I have about 10,000 right now. At one time I had over 25,000, but I did a really large pruning back on it because I only want to send it to people who are truly interested in my books and want to open and read the newsletters. But most of the newsletters I got have been from doing anthologies and box set with other paranormal writers. And we would do contests, sign up for a newsletter and, win an Amazon gift card. Or, now on my website, I have a little pop-up that if you want to join my newsletter, you can get a free novella. Those kind of incentives.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Those are the incentives that we talk about in plenty of episodes, you guys. If you should check out, I talk with Jess Schmidt, or Russell Nolte. Check out their episodes because they talk a lot about the nitty gritty of how to do those kind of giveaways to build your list. But right. the essential thing is give people a little bit of something or a chance to win something. And
right. Yeah. Even if it's a short story, just some kind of little incentive to thank them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for their time.
For their time and attention. And
right.
And how often do you send a newsletter out?
It really varies a lot. I try to do it just monthly. Some months, I might do it twice a month, but I don't do anything, weekly. I think that's a little too much. That's just my personal opinion. So usually I probably do 16 a year, maybe.
Yeah. That's so doable.
Yeah. It's kind of fun. It's like anything, you get used to it. And as you develop a little confidence, it starts to be just a fun way to connect with others.
That's what a lot of people who are just starting and don't have people on their newsletter, it feels like a chore. And I try to explain to people, and maybe you can talk a little to this, that when you start getting responses from people, then it becomes a conversation instead of a chore. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. When I first started one, I think I started it a few months to a few weeks before my first book was published. I was thinking, nobody knows me. I have nothing to say to people. I have a boring life in a small town. All I do is read and write and have my kitties and, kind of thing. What would I have to say? But I just made myself push past the resistance and talked about why I wrote what I wrote, and my journey in writing. And, granted, I didn't have a lot of subscribers at the time, but it was a place to start, and it got me over my fear.
Mm-hmm. And now do you have people responding to your newsletters?
I do. It's fun. A lot of times I'll have pictures of Grendel, who's my orange tabby that I love to death. And I'll post pictures of Grendel and they'll write back with pictures of their kitty cats. And I think you've got a black cat. Have I seen a picture of you holding a black kitty cat? Yeah.
I have a number of kitty cats. Yes, I know. When you said, I just sit at home and read and write and play with my kitties, I was like, we're the same person. We're like the same person.
Right. And eat chocolate. So, I do all
yes,
that.
Chocolate, wine, cats.
Yeah.
And books. That is my ideal life. And Debbie and I get to live it right now.
That's right.
So you guys, she's having I'm just going to point out, Debbie, that she's having conversations. Does it motivate you to know that there are people excited about your books?
Oh, absolutely. Because when you're sitting at home in front of a computer for days and weeks and months on end, and even though I publish many books now, you feel like you're so alone. You're in an isolated environment. And then when you get a message or an email from a reader, it absolutely makes your day. And I remember one of the first emails I got from a reader with the first book I published. I had a character in it with severe autism. And at the time, it was kind of unusual to portray a character like that. But anyway, I heard from a lady in Canada who had 3 special needs children. And she talked about, how meaningful the book was to her and how spot on it was in describing this character. And I mean, really, it brought tears to my eyes to think that someone, from hundreds of miles away was touched by my story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And are you still in contact with that reader?
No.
Okay.
No, I wish I wish I was, but no. That was just one of those shot in the dark kind of things.
That's so
but now
lovely.
I do have readers. Yeah, I do have readers I've stayed in contact with, and sometimes you connect with people on kind of a deeper soul level. And I do have some of those readers, and that they mean so much to me.
I call those super fans, but it's like super fan / super friend. At some point, they cross over, and then you're like, I would go have a drink with that person.
Right.
I'd go hang out with them outside of this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to write some books with a lot of Native American lore in it, and one of those super fans I met was a Choctaw woman. And, she wrote to me about, I had written about some of their kind of obscure older legends and rituals and stuff. And it was so meaningful to her to read that. And, for me to connect with her was very special. And I always wished I had just like a little bit of Native American in me. But she, tells me that it's a soul thing too. It doesn't have to be by blood. So she made me an honorary Native American.
She's adopted you. She's adopted you into the
right.
I think that's so lovely because you guys, there's a moment, and I don't know if you had, maybe it's not exactly one moment when you're traditionally published, but when you're self-publishing, for sure, there's a moment where you're clicking okay, I'm publishing this now, where you're kind of wondering, is anybody going to like this? Is this going to touch anybody? Is what I've created from my heart something that people will respond to?
Yeah, absolutely. There's that. I think even when you talk to really super successful writers, there's always that little bit of fear and insecurity. Even if you have a lot of fans and if, say, you switch genres or you're writing something new, you think, gosh, a lot of people are going to be disappointed. This isn't what I usually write. There's always that kind of a pressure because you don't know until you put it out there how people are going to respond. You just have to have a little bit of faith and get past the fear.
Yeah, and write the best book you can.
Then, right, exactly.
Write the best book. The first thing is write the best book you can, but but not so much that you don't complete it. That's the caveat.
Right. Right. And I do know people who have spent, and I'm serious, years on a book. And while I'm all for polishing and perfecting your craft, don't do that. Put it out there, do your best. And, with every book, you probably get a little better, a little more sophisticated and polished. But, a good story is a good story. Let it out.
Oh my gosh. You guys, that's the tweetable. A good story is a good story. Let it out. So beautiful. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I think that's a really good encouragement for people because my business partner and I, we like to always say, you can't get to the second one until you do the first one. And the first one's never going to be your best because it's your first one.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's like the first time you rode your bike.
The first book I published.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I know I was just going to say the first book I published, I had so many point of views in it. And, rereading it now, it reads a little choppy. But, you learn.
Yeah. You learn. Be gentle with yourself. You learn. I think
Yes.
it's easier to do as I get older.
Right. Oh, definitely.
It's so much easier to be gentle with myself and not expect perfection as I get older. I love that. My favorite part about getting older. So, can you tell us a little bit about an obstacle or a challenge? We're into the mindset, you guys. And mindset is, for me, I think, one of the most important things, which we've kind of been talking about a little bit, being gentle with yourself, letting, just putting something out there, the story, having faith in your story. But can you tell us an obstacle or challenge that you faced in your journey to be an author and how you worked through it?
I can sum up my major obstacle in 4 words. I'm not good enough. That is the negative mantra that plays in my head over and over, and that I have to, if I can't completely eliminate it, at least stuff it enough where I can ignore it and go about doing what I need to do to fulfill myself and to write a story. And when you're talking about mindset, I think that negative mantra that self-talk I give myself, I'm not good enough. That's not just in writing. It tends to show up in other areas of my life. I'm not a good enough mother. I'm not a good enough this or that. And that's just something that I personally battle.
I think everybody battles that. I certainly do.
Yeah.
I think it's I'm not good enough or I'm not lovable. Like at the core, if you dig way deep into why you're not doing something or why, wherever your resistance shows up, I think at the core for almost everybody is I'm not good enough.
Right.
And
so it's a horrible thing to tell yourself.
Yeah. How do you work around it?
I try to lose myself in the story, and this is corny. I try to lose myself in the story, and I get so wrapped up in characters that the characters start to feel like friends and people that I love, and I feel like I owe them to tell their story.
That's wonderful.
Even in my own imperfect way.
That is not corny. That is absolutely beautiful. You guys, is absolutely beautiful. Like, because, and I especially love it because for women, you guys, I'm talking to you guys, you guys, ladies.
Yeah. Y'all.
But y'all. I'm talking to y'all.
That's what we say in Alabama.
We have a tendency to do things for other people that we won't do for ourselves. So it's so easy to be like, oh, I made this commitment to somebody else, so I'm going to follow through on it. But then when you make a commitment to yourself, like I'm going to complete my book, but there's dishes to be done or the kids need something. And all of a sudden the commitment to yourself gets put on the back burner. And so Debbie has developed this corny, as she says, but I think genius way of motivating herself and kind of sneaking around that it's not for me, it's for my characters.
Right. Yeah, if you can't love yourself enough to get over the self-talk, love your characters, love the story.
Yeah, don't do it for yourself. Do it for your characters. Well, I mean, do it for yourself too. But after you do it a few times, then it becomes easier. But the first time, if you have to, the first time to get over that I'm not good enough mindset, do it for the characters that you've fallen in love with or the story that really deserves it, regardless of whether you feel like you deserve it or not.
Amen.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh gosh, I would, I would tell any writers out there, especially the ones getting started, if there's ever a way you can take, even if it's just a day long or weekend writer's retreat, oh my gosh, those are so much fun. I get together with some of my writer friends once or twice a year, and we go to the North Georgia mountains for several days. And, we all share cooking duties and, light housekeeping, but we spend our time encouraging each other to write as much as we can while we're away from all the distractions of home and family and housework and everything else, that we have in our lives. It is such a wonderful experience. Treat yourself.
Thank you, you guys. You guys, Debbie, y'all,
Yeah.
Debbie.
For y'all.
Actually, that's one of the things I'm planning on organizing this year is I really am really wanting to create an Author Like a Boss retreat because I love organizing events. Like event organizing is what I would do, especially organizing events where groups of women come together. Because I think there's something magical, and it changes when a guy is in there, and I don't know why. There's something magical when you get a bunch of women together who are supporting each other.
Yep.
And creating at the same time, creating and supporting and enjoying. And it's just this wonderful experience. Right. And so
it is. Put me on your list when you organize that.
Yeah, I'm thinking for Texas this year, you guys. Texas is kind of central-ish US, but warmer than Idaho.
Very.
I'm only doing retreats where it's warm.
I could probably only handle Idaho in August.
Yeah. Like it's too cold otherwise. It's too cold up here in Idaho. So only retreats in warm locations. But yeah. Keep an ear out, you guys, for the Author Like a Boss retreat because there is something special. And thank you so much for sharing. What do you when you come back from the retreat, what have you accomplished? Or the writing getaway?
What I will usually accomplish besides a tremendous word count is, we also do a lot of brainstorming in the evening on plot. So I usually have a more firm grasp on the plot of the story. I know where I'm going with it. And besides that, it just feeds your creative soul to immerse yourself in an environment where you can focus on your art.
You guys, I think I keep saying you guys, y'all. I'm changing it to y'all from now on.
There you go.
From the permission, I think the biggest part of that, the biggest, most important part of that is giving yourself permission to go to make what's important to you a priority. Right.
Yeah, I used to feel guilty when I would take time away or spend money on conferences because I think, oh, what if I never sell this book and I've wasted all this money. And then I realized, do I really want to be 80 years old and look back and think, oh, why didn't I take a chance? Why didn't I do what I really wanted to do?
That's a question there's two questions that we ask in the Author Boss Academy is at the end of your life, will you have shared your gifts? Because that's one that struck me. That's the one that motivated me to transform my life from being an administrative assistant to an entrepreneur. I was like, I have gifts to share and I can feel them withering. My soul is withering with every day that I spend in this job.
Right. I totally understand that.
Yeah. And so I was like, I need to find out what they are. Like a lot of writers already know because writers usually have been like, I always wanted to be a writer.
Oh, yeah. And I did too.
But you can give yourself permission because you're going to be spending the time. Well, for me, I was like, I'm spending 40 hours a week doing something that I don't really enjoy. And I'm not like making buku bucks anyway. So I could be doing what I love, spending 40 hours a week doing that and making little or making a ton. Who knows? But it's not. But at least my time will be time that I enjoyed spending, and so it was.
And you'll be happy.
Yeah. And my second question, besides at the end of your life, will you have shared your gifts? Because that's what I asked. I'm like, I got to share my gifts. But the second question is, what if your gifts had the power to change the world or someone's life, or like the lady in Canada who was so touched by your story? Like your gifts have that potential. And what if you never shared them?
Exactly. And, I used to think, oh, well, that sounds so pie in the sky, and who am I to change someone's life? Just writing, I'm doing air quotes here, romance novels.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's sometimes people need an escape. Sometimes people need the optimism and the surety of a happily ever after in a book. I mean, you never know when you might help someone over a rough patch in their lives. I think of people in hospital waiting rooms, people that have some serious life issues, and reading and connecting with characters does make a difference to them.
Mm-hmm. It really, really does.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of anecdotes. I saw an interview a long time ago. It was on Oprah, but it was a interview of I can't remember the actress's name, but she did Kill Bill. You guys, that lady, Uma Thurman.
Okay.
And she was being interviewed, and there was a person in the audience who, like, during the commercial break, wanted to tell her a story, and she said, I had cancer. Like, I think she had a recurring cancer, and it had come back, and she didn't know how she was going to fight it. And then she watched Kill Bill, and she was able to imagine herself as Uma Thurman with a sword, but instead of killing people, she was going after. She was like, I'm a powerful woman going after this cancer. And it really, you could tell that was what she used to get herself through this recurring. It was so beautiful. I'm like, whoever thought Kill Bill would do that, right?
Right. You never know. That's why I think it's so important to be careful in the words you choose and the things you say to other people, because really you do make an impact. You may never know it, but you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think especially, and I'm going to take it back to your personal, one of the things I did, because I love educating people, women and kids too. I worked as a instructional assistant at a school for children with autism.
Oh,
So, yeah.
you're an angel. I love that, because they can be some of the most difficult people to work with because of their behavioral and social issues. So thank you.
Yes, but their hearts are so pure, and they just, and so I know, not as a parent, but I know how, which I can't even imagine, but I know that if your stories have characters with autism in them, you are touching somebody who needs to know they're not alone.
Right.
Absolutely.
I agree. Yeah.
Absolutely. I know that is happening. And and y'all, if you have something in your life that you are, you could be touching somebody. I read a book, Blue-Eyed Devil by Lisa. I have no idea how to say her last name. Kleypas.
Oh, yes.
I've never known.
I think it is Kleypas. I'm not sure.
Okay. Klepys.
Yeah, she's very famous.
Yes, she's very famous. But this particular book, she had the character marry somebody who was a narcissist. Yeah, but it was so, I had never seen that in a romance novel, because I read a lot of romance novels. I had never seen that in a romance novel, and it was done so well. And I was like, oh, I feel less alone because I have relationships with people who are narcissists that are close relationships that I can't just let go of.
Yeah. That's funny you should mention that, because the suspense I wrote that recently sold has a lot of gaslighting and narcissism in it. And yeah, that's really a horrible thing for somebody to go through.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's not one of the it's not like one of these obvious, like cancer, or it's as a very subtle thing. So it was really lovely. It's one of my favorite romance novels ever because of that.
What's the name of it again? Blue-Eyed Devil?
Blue-Eyed Devil. It's really,
I'm going to read that. Okay.
Yeah, because she puts it in she empowers the woman, the heroine. She empowers the heroine to and I'm like, yes. Anyways, okay.
Yes.
So you guys, the long story long is you guys could really touch somebody with your book and your stories. So don't let your mindset of I'm not good enough stop you from putting it out there.
Right, right. I agree. And I love the name of your business, Author Like a Boss. That feels very empowering.
Yeah, I like it too. At first I was worried. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I was worried that it would be a little masculine, like crushing it. But I was like, no, if I make everything purple, if I make the colors purple, and I'm obviously a woman,
Right.
it'll be like Author Like a Boss, like, yeah, boss lady, women.
Mhm.
I mean, dudes, you guys are totally welcome. This will be helpful for you too. But
Right.
I think there's a lot of role models for men out there on how to be successful, and not as many for women. And our minds work differently. They
Yes.
just do.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we're more, we battle things like people pleasing and self-confidence, maybe a little more than men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
I just generally, but I also think we have the strengths, which are connecting and being generous. And in this market, in this genre, in this hemisphere of, writing,
Hmm.
being generous and connecting with people is a huge strength.
Yes, yes. And good karma always comes back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Always treat people well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge strength to do that. So that's why, rather than like crushing it and single-minded, focus just on I'm like, connect. Let's utilize what we're good at to move forward towards the life of our dreams. Sorry, I can get really
Right.
preachy on
I
this
love
because I'm
that.
so passionate about it.
No, I love it. And, there is a lot, well, I personally have an agent editors that have been females. I think there's a lot of not all, but a lot of agents and editors that are female. And they're so much fun to work with. They're always so compassionate with feedback. And, they always start everything, oh, I love this part, but now we want to fix this little area here so it's as good as the rest of the book. And, we're just so gentle and positive with each other.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's I love that. Thank you guys. Thank all you ladies for being so gentle and positive with each other, and that it works. It works to write a better story, to create the author business that you love, and to have the life of your dreams, because you actually have the things that you need, which is connecting with people, sharing your story, letting the people you've connect with give you feedback so that you can have the best story possible, helping other authors. Sorry, I'm like, Deb, you're just here for me to talk to you. Like, Debbie's here while I go on.
I love hearing it. I love hearing it.
You brought it up, and I'm like, this is why I'm doing this show, because I love it so much.
Right.
Okay. So back to what advice would you give to other authors who want to be successful, or what would you like to highlight that we've already talked about?
Mm-hmm. I would say one of the things I see is a lot of authors publishing before they're really ready to. Not just self-publishing, but sending out manuscripts, and they're really not quite there yet. And then they get discouraged and think that they don't have the skills to break into the industry. I think you should really spend time on perfecting your craft and learning as much as you can about writing. Because if you write a good book with a good story, the readers and agents and editors will find you. You will eventually stand out in the crowd.
That's wonderful advice. So because you said you didn't get published until you'd written 3 books.
Right. Yeah, I look back now and think, wow, how did I have the determination to keep going? But it's something I enjoy doing. I just felt like with every book I was getting a little better and a little closer to my dream.
And you said here in earlier, you said, I truly believe that if you have a good story in a popular genre, success will come one day.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You'll get discovered.
Yeah.
As long as you don't give up.
As long as you don't give up because you think you're not good enough. You are
Right.
good
Yeah.
enough.
That doesn't mean you throw out one book on Amazon and don't market it, or you submit to, 3 agents or 3 editors, and if they reject you, then you give up on your dream. No, you keep going and you keep trying different things until you succeed.
Because you deserve it.
You do.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Audience, y'all, you deserve it. You are good enough. And
Right.
and there's people who want to read it. There's people who want to read it. It's so hard sometimes to separate ourselves from the books, because you're like, this is my heart and my imagination. And I love authors so much because they just create the story out of just their mind.
Yeah.
It's literally, it didn't exist and then it exists because you made it something. It's just amazing to me.
Thank you.
Yeah. But people love that too. People want to like immerse themselves in the world that you've created. And so if you have a good story in a popular genre like romance or mystery or,
Right. Yeah,
or
that's a huge slice of the market.
Yes.
Those 2 genres right there.
Those 2 right there are huge. And that's for traditionally published. If you're self-published and you have it's not maybe not as popular of a genre, but you can find your audience. Like if you were writing fiction, if you had a niche that was just fiction with children with autism in them, you might not have as huge of an audience, but the people that you had would be loyal.
Exactly. It would be so fulfilling.
They would buy everything that you had because you would be writing their experience and what they needed. So it doesn't have to be all about it ends up being not all about you. It's about your story and the people you can touch. Sorry.
Yes. Amen.
Thanks. Sorry.
I agree.
I'm getting so preachy on this one. Okay. Debbie, can you please tell us about your latest books and where our listeners can find you?
Okay. My latest book the name of it is Appalachian Abduction, and it was published by Harlequin Intrigue, which is their romantic suspense line. It was just published on March 1st. And it's set in Lavender Mountain, Georgia, and it actually involves the subject of child trafficking, human slavery trafficking. And the heroine in it has left her job at the Atlanta Police Department because her best friend's daughter has been caught up in this ring, and she wants to save her. And it's all about her going out into this little town in the mountains and recovering her best friend's daughter and the sheriff's deputy she meets that helps her do that.
And shenanigans and mushrooming ensue.
Right.
And then can you tell us a little bit about your indie book before you...
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That's like a second chance at romance novel. It's about an older male who is a dragon shifter who has become very successful in business, likes to hoard his money or whatever, but he unexpectedly gains custody of 16-year-old twin daughters that he didn't know existed. So they suddenly come into his life, and he's this reclusive man who lives up in the mountains. And so one of the daughters runs away with one of his security guards, and he has reasons to believe that she might have been kidnapped instead of just eloped. And the only way he can find her is to reconnect with his old girlfriend, who is a witch, who is an expert at locator spells. So it's about how, in their search to save his daughter, he falls back in love with the witch.
Oh, Debbie, you don't know this about me, and maybe audience, y'all, you're just learning this about me, but I have a weakness for dragons in books, and especially dragon shifter romances. So
very cool.
Thank you, Debbie, because I love dragon shifter romances so much. Dragons are like, when I get a tattoo, you guys, when I get a tattoo.
I'm going to get a mermaid, but I do love dragons too. They're so powerful, and the history lore with them are amazing.
Yes. Mermaids. Yes. I love mermaids as well. I basically love everything fantastic that I'm like, magic does exist, you guys. It does. We haven't seen
does.
it. Okay. And where can people find you they can sign up to your newsletter and on social media? Where's the best place?
They can find me on debbieherbert.com on my website. And, from there you could sign up for my newsletter and get the free book. You could also on Amazon, just enter my name, Debbie Herbert, or, the same on Goodreads.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you guys, she's also on Facebook. And, but probably the best way to reach her is through her newsletter, because then she'll be able to let you know when all the things are coming out. Like the next book in the Lavender Mountain series.
Yeah.
Just the name of those mountains makes me want to visit them.
Me too. My mother-in-law still lives in the North Georgia mountains, and whenever my husband and I visit her, I'm always writing down names of, like, there's Blood Mountain, there's Booger Holler Road, I fall in love with the names. And I got to write about that one.
Oh my gosh. Maybe one of my next questions should be, how do you get inspiration? Where do you get your inspiration? Because stuff like that, like Lavender Mountains, I want to go there right now. I want to go to Booger Holler Road. It does need to be in a book. That's where our next retreat is, you guys. Lavender Mountains. Okay.
That would be so cool. I'm there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Debbie, for being here. We really loved having you here on Author Like a Boss. You gave us so much good information.
Thank you.
You guys, y'all,
Yeah.
y'all, thank you also for listening. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard, go ahead and please subscribe and leave a review, and be sure to check out Debbie Herbert's website and also the authorlikeaboss.com website, and sign up for our newsletter so that when we do our retreat in the Lavender Mountains,
you're right. I am definitely signing up for your newsletter. I'm excited.
Okay. Thank you so much. Hugs and happy authoring.
Welcome to the Author Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for indie authors who want to improve their writing, up-level their marketing, make money with their books, and have fun doing it. Now, on to the show with your host, Ella Barnard.